Okay, welcome everyone. Good Zevachim, and we are already 31 Zoomers strong and growing as we learn. Sponsored by Shalom Fogeli and Nishmas Yaakov Zeb ben Yehuda Aryeh, Rivka bas Yaakov Yosef, Tzivya Miriam bas God, Yosef ben Sion ben Yaakov Zev, and for a great shidduch for Chaya Tzivya bas Shoshana Gittel, by Baruch Ian Nishmas Yaakov Chaim ben Abba, Esther bas Yona, for Avram ben Shmuel HaKohen, and L'Refuah Shalema for Liba bas Anya, by A.B. Spry, and for the physical, emotional, physical protection of Yeshua Menachem Mendel ben Beila Shendel Rivka. We are also learning, sponsored by Mark Frankel, in the loving memory of his father Yisrael Tzvi ben Chaim Yeshua Falek, and we are learning, sponsored by Berish Geseman, L'Refuah Shalema for Shoshana bas Adina Chana. We are holding at the very top line of Daf Lamed Gimel. Just a passing comment on the Gemara yesterday, that there are two ways to look at when the tzibur brings a carbon. When the majority of the tzibur is tamei, they could bring a carbon. There's two ways to look at it. Whether we say tuma hutra b'tzibur, that we say when the tzibur, the majority of the tzibur is tamei, it's permitted. In other words, that means that the prohibition of tuma does not apply when the majority of the tzibur is tamei, or we say just tuma hutra b'tzibur. In other words, there's still a problem of doing it b'tuma, but the need of the community outweighs it and supersedes it. So the Gemara just comments that from our discussion, we see Michlal, the Travaya, both parties held Svirulu that Tuma dechuyehi b'tzibur, that Tuma is only pushed aside, but not that it is waived. Now the Gemara goes back to our discussion, Ula's statement of Bia b'mixas, if it's Shema Bia or not. In other words, if a person just puts his hands in, is it considered like he went inside into the Azara? So says the Gemara, Lema Messiah, let's adduce a proof about Bia b'mixas, that it is considered to be a full coming in. Kol ha-smichas shayasham, all smicha, when we lean on the animal, on its head, before doing the shechita, all smichas that are done in the Beis HaMikdash on karbanos, kairei an aleihen, I apply to them, takef l'smicha shchita, that immediately after doing the smicha, you have to shech the animal. There should be no interruption. Again, 4 lines from the top of Lamed Gimel Lamed Aleph. Chutz mizu, except for the case of the Mitzayra. The Mitzayra has a complication. Chutz mizu, sha'isa b'shar ne'konar. The Mitzayra, remember, is until he has the blood of his karbanos sprinkled upon him, put upon him, he's not allowed to enter. So the smicha that he does has to be outside. Chutz mizu, sha'isa b'shar ne'konar. It has to be done by the Nikanor gate, and the shechita has to be b'tzafin inside. So there you can't have the smicha right near the shechita. Chutz mizu, with the exception of the mitzayra, shahisa b'shar ne'kaner, she'ei mitzayra yachal likanes l'sham, because he's not allowed to enter ad shemizin olav medam chatasai or medam ashamai, until we sprinkle upon him from the blood of his sin offering and his blood of his guilt offering. But the Gemara says, why can't it be taken of smicha l'shchita? If you're going to say that bia b'mixas lo yishma bia, if you're going to say that just putting in the hands is not considered going inside, so no problem. La'ayil yadei, let him put his hands inside, v'lismaich, and let him do it in the northern part, and then let them shech the animal right there, because even though it's kache kachim and it has to be on the north, it's still on the northern side. Says Gemara, no, this is going according to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, that restricts the north of the Mizbeach to much further down. He learns that it's only the northern part paralleling the northern side of the altar, not closer to the outside, so it doesn't extend to the northern part of the Hasara near the Nicanor gate. Hamani, Amar Rav Yosef, Hamani, Rav Yosef, Rav Yehudi, the Amar Merchak Tzafain, the Tzafain that you have to shech the animal by is only the Tzafain that parallels the wall of the Mizbeach. Even if he sticks his hand in and does smicha on the head of the animal, you have to then walk it all the way over to the northern part paralleling the altar, which is very far. So it wouldn't be take the smicha shchita. So the Gemara has another einfallen. The Gemara has another suggestion. What's the problem? V'la'aved pishpesh, make a small door in the northern part, the northern wall of the Azara, opposite the Mizbeach. Let him stick his hands in there, and then you'll be able to shecht it right by that door. Says the Gemara, yeah, you think you could just add doors to the Azara? The floor plan, the architectural plan of the Azara is only al pi hanavi. You're not allowed to add any doors. Abaye and Rava Dimrei Travayu, Abaye and Rava both say that Hakol Biksav, everything was written. Miyad Hashem, says the Navi, from the hand of Hashem, Olai, his skill. He gave me the intelligence, and I recorded Kol Meleches Hatavnis, all the work of the plan. So everything has to be according to plan, according to what's mapped out by the Rebbeinu Shalom. You just can't add a wall wherever you want, a door wherever you want. Ikadam, right? The Gemara gives another answer. The Gemara says that you can't just stick your hand in and do smicha, because the nature of smicha is you have to do it with all your might. Amar Rav Yosef, Kol hasaymech roishei v'rubai machnes. You would have to bring in your head and your entire body, my timer, because kol koichai ba'inan. You have to do it with all your might, and therefore, since the Mitzayra can't go in with his full body, that's not even a question of bia b'mixas. Therefore, you don't have the smicha and the shchita right next to each other. Hilkach loy efsher. But now the Gemara says, okay, but I want to ask you, if you need to have the smicha next to the shchita, if that's biblical, and it's biblical that the Mitzayra needs to do smicha, then why don't you say the Torah is obviously giving a dispensation that even though he's not yet fully tar, that he's allowed to walk inside, because this is the ritual. This is the biblically orchestrated procedure. And that's what the Gemara asks, a very, very simple question. My kasavar, ikasavar smichas ashim mitzayra daraisa. If the din of smicha is biblical, and if the din of a takeif l'smicha shchita daraisa, and that you need it to be immediately after the smicha, you have to do the shchita, so then you'll say that the Torah is saying this is an exception. Lay over l'smach lad, you let him go in to parallel right opposite, even though he's not fully tar, to parallel right opposite the Azara, so that it should be shchita in the tzafin, and let him do the smicha and right away the shchita, the Rachmana Amar, because obviously that's what the Torah is dictating. What's the problem? Amar Rav Ada bar Masa, so Rav Ada bar Masa says, you're right. technically, since this is what the Torah dictates, he should be able to march in, do the smicha right opposite the northern wall of the Mizbeach, and do immediately after the Shechita. Except we're worried that he might not walk straight in. He might take a circuitous route, and he might walk more than is necessary. If he walks more than is necessary, then he's playing around with an Issachar, because he's technically still Tameh, and it's an Issachar. So we don't have him do that. So, says the Gemara, we don't have him do that. We're afraid that he might walk more steps than he has to. Ikidamre. Now, there's another way to look at this. Ikidamre. Amar Rav Ada bar Masna, really, smichas Ashim Mitzayra is daraisa. You're right. Doing the smicha on the Ashim Mitzayra is biblical. Why don't we say that then we should let him go in, and since you need to have immediately after the smicha the shechita, and the smicha is biblical, why don't we say he should go in? But the take of l'smicha shechita lav d'oraisa. But the insistence that the shechita has to be right after the smicha, that's not biblical. And therefore, that's why, since that's not biblical, we don't have a dispensation that he needs to go in. Rather, we do the smicha outside, and then we bring the animal to the altar, and it's the exception. Like we said, that I only know one exception, and that's this case of the Mitzayra. Meisvei, the Gemara proceeds. The Gemara over here is pretty persistent. It says in the pasuk, "V'samach v'shochat." You should do smicha, and then shecht. Ma smicha b'tahirin, just like smicha has to be done only when somebody is tahar. Av shchita b'tahirin. So also shchita should be. Remember, we had this question about a tamei doing shchita. And this man, the Yama holds, we learn out that just like the smicha should be with one who is star, the shechita should also be with one who is star. Now, the Gemara asks, but if you say that the din of takef l'smicha shechita is not biblical, so then why does the smicha have to be done with a tar? The tamei should do it outside and then march it in and do the shechita. The amrit lav d'oraisa. It could be done even by one who is stomach. Says, well, you're right. I capitulate. Ella Eipach. Smichas Ashim Mitzayra Lav Daraisa. The smicha of the Ashim Mitzayra is not biblical. But take if the smicha shchita, that is Daraisa. That is biblical. But that answers our question. We had a question. Why don't you say, since the Torah mandates that you need to have shechita, and it's biblical that smicha has to be right before the shechita, then the Torah is giving you a dispensation that the Mitzayra should go in. So he's saying there's no such dispensation because the smicha of an ashim of a Mitzayra is not biblical. Now, as we turn to Lamed Gimel Lamed Beis, I want to take the opportunity to start welcoming in our 33 Zoomers, as we welcome in Shimon Klein, Mel Zachter, A.B. Spry, Ben Sion Cohn, Rabbi Kaniel. It's good to have you, Rabbi Kaniel, Saba, and Dr. Guy, Yisrael Fisher, and Irving Fishbaum, Rabbi Kranz, and as his word was true, he did come back. To everybody's, Barry Cement, Yaakov Warman, and the intrepid Eddie Chazan, Yitzi Fuchs, Yitzi Muller, Nachman Chapler, Rebellia Yaffe, Menachem Yemansky, Gedalia Engel, Shelley Zeitlin, and Bruce, the Baal Tshuva Bruce, who's back on track, Stephen Holtzman, Danny Vogel, Moshe Lehman, Avram Rezepkowitz, Richard Rosenzweig. I'm not sure. 718, could you announce who you are? Somebody just flashes on over here, 718. Naftali Jablin, Ilya Shutman, Abe Arbach, Chaim Braun, and David Helfgott here in the shul, holding down the fort here so far in the base, the Agus Beis Zev of Fairways Lakewood, is Barish Kesselman, Herschel Waldner, and Ruvain Shannon, and arriving for the next Amid, Michal Avram Chavin, and we are awaiting some more people. Marshall should be here, and maybe Mark, and we're missing more of our Ian. We're missing more of our Chevra. By the way, I spoke to Avig de Fried in Eretz Yisrael, and he sends everybody his best. Aaron Swade is not feeling well. We really hope that he'll be able to rejoin us, and we are waiting to see if Yeshua Shmuel will join us from Florida, and Mo Kushner is not with us yet either. But anyway, so we are holding on the top of Lamed Gimel Lamed Beis 33b Michal Avram Chavin, as now the Gemara tells us a whole another pshat. When it says Bia b'mikzeh Shma Bia, it's not talking about chorus. It's talking about malchus. In order to get malchus, Ravina Amar Inyan malchus itma. It's talking about not. So therefore, we don't have the problem with the Mitzayra, because Bia b'mikzeh Shma Bia is not referring to the Isra of chorus. It's talking about if you stick your hands in, are you going to get malchus? Says the Gemara, Ki Asr Ravin Amar. Ravin says, no, it's talking about a whole different subject. It's talking about the pasuk of Bakol Kodesh Leisiga is talking about if one has Tumas Haguf and he touches Kachim, does he get malchus? Right? So here, Eddie, who refuses to show his face, he only wants us to see his ceiling. But there he is. It really is Eddie. But Eddie, you never know. It could be that he's out in the casino and he just leaves the camera on the ceiling. It's good to see that it really is Eddie. So anyway, so Amar Ki Asa Ravin Amar Rebbe Avo LeInyan Tamei Shinaga B'Kodesh Itma. It's talking about a tamei that touches kachim. Now we know that it's a really no-no to eat kachim b'tumas haguf. But what about to touch kachim? Right? So, well, commercial, as we're holding 3 lines from the top of Lamed Gimel Lamed Beis. The imar tamei shenaga b'kodesh. Reish Lakish Amalaika. Reish Lakish says there's malchus. Reb Yochanan Ama Eina Laika. Reish Lakish Amalaika. It says Bakol Kodesh Loi Siga. With all Kodesh you shouldn't touch. So that's coming to tell you that it's a lav for a tummy to touch kachim. Reb Yochanan Amar Eina Laika, because Reb Yochanan holds that this pasuk is not referring to kachim, it's referring to truma. Rabbi Yochanan Eina Loika, because ahu b'truma ksiv. Says the Gemara, but wait a second. The pasuk about kol kodesh leisiga is not available to tell you that for a tummy who touches kachim gets malchus. Reish Lakish Haikra lahachi udasa. Hai mibayle. This pasuk is needed. Hasar azhara la'eichel basar kodesh. It's needed to tell me. Remember, the Torah has to give us a warning and also a punishment. But this is a warning that a person who is tamei is forbidden to eat kachim. It's not available for touching. As the Gemara tells us, this is a fairish teaching. How do we know a warning that you're not allowed to eat basar kachim when you're tummy? Where do you have a warning for that? Now, actually, we know that it's an einish karas. We know that it's a penalty of karas. Eating kachim b'tumas haguf carries the most severe penalty of karas. But the Torah also needs that the system of the Torah is that it gives the einish and it also gives a formal lav, and this is the lav. Rabbi Yochanan says, Tani Bardala, Asya tum asay mebias mikdash. We learn it out, Gzeirah Shava, from entering the mikdash when you're tamei. Now, by entering the mikdash when you're tamei, there's an asara and a penalty. So, ma'alahala an onish v'hizir. Afkan, so also by eating kachim b'tumas haguf, just like onash, just like it says the penalty of kares, v'hizir is also a lav. So says the Gemara, answers the Gemara, you're right. Reish Lakish does learn out from this pasuk that there's a warning not to eat kachim b'tumas haguf. But the Torah uses a lashon of negiah, and therefore we learn out both. As the Gemara tells us, Tamei shenoga b'kodesh mida'apke rachmana b'lashon negiah. That we know because it says negiah. Asara la'oichel, and the warning that you're not allowed to eat kachim b'tumah, that's mid-iskish kodesh lemikdash. That's because the pasuk says in juxtaposition that you shouldn't touch kachim and you shouldn't enter the mikdash. Just like entering to the mikdash there's a iser of lav and karis. So also obviously it's not touching. So also it's referring to eating, just like eating b'tumas haguf is karis. There's also a warning not to eat. And the Gemara says that there's a brisa like the pshat of Reish Lakish, that Ba'akol Kodesh Lo Yiziga also tells you that there's malchus for a tamei touching kachim. Tani Kavasid Reish Lakish, Ba'akol Kodesh Lo Yiziga, all kodesh you shouldn't touch, Azhara La'oichel. It's an azhara not to eat. Ata Omer Azhara La'oichel, Oy Einay Ela L'Negeya. Maybe it's just a warning not to touch it. Talmud Leimer Ba'kol Kodesh Leisiga Ve'la Mikdash Leisavai. So you have a juxtaposition between a tamei entering the mikdash and a tamei not eating. Makish Kodesh LeMikdash. Ma Mikdash, just like by the mikdash, it's a davar sheyesh by netilas neshama. It involves kares. Entering in the mikdash b'tumas haguf, it involves kares. Af kodesh davar sheyesh by netilas neshama. The warning is about something of kares, which is eating it b'tumas haguf. V'i b'nageya, because if it's talking about, no, Mel, you took over the screen. Mel, you took over the screen. V'ibn ageya netilas neshama mi'ika. Go into your gallery. Thank you. Says the Gemara, v'ibn ageya, there's no chorus, netilas neshama mi'ika, ela ba'achila. But since the Torah uses a lashon of negeya, it comes to tell me that if you touch kachim b'tumah, there is a lav. Now, believe it or not, we already finished the first amid. We're ready for the second amid, so we'll just pause a moment to change over the tape over here.